We are entering the third and final phase of the precious metals bull market. This is where the biggest moves are made and the biggest gains in wealth are made right here. And this is the proof that we are entering that, because it's now getting into the public's consciousness. Hi, and welcome to this video. I've got Alan Hibbard with me once again, and Alan has the weekly wrap up with some stuff that I have not seen yet. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm great, Mike. Thanks.
Good. So what have you got for us?
Yeah. Well, first of all, our theme this week is your golden parachute. So we've got some things related to gold and being safe. So first of all, I want to start with the number of the week, which is 7 million. This is a number of people. And I want to tell you in just a minute what 7 million people have done. But first, I want to check in with how people are doing overall. Our chart of the week comes from the Wall Street Journal. The article here is, how can spending be up when people feel down? And they've got a chart of two different indices here, the happiness index, which I'll explain in a second, and the consumer sentiment index. And basically, consumer sentiment is asking people, how do you feel about, different parts of your life and the economy? And as you can see, it tends to be not as volatile as the happiness index, which swings wildly. And the happiness index, which is really convoluted, it's 1,000 divided by the sum divided by the sum of the unemployment and inflation rates. So does that make sense to you, Mike? The unemployment rate, inflation rate, add them up and then divide it into 1,000.
No, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It's very weird.
I was thinking that the reason the happiness index is up might be because of after COVID, there's so many people working from home now. And instead of going into the office every day, doing the commute, all of that kind of stuff. But this is unemployment and inflation summed and then divided by 1,000.
It's really weird. And let's look at the pieces first of all. So unemployment and inflation. So by the way, those are the two things that are the stated objectives of the Federal Reserve, right? Keeping unemployment as low as possible and keeping prices stable, which they call 2% inflation, which is weird. But these are the two things that the Federal Reserve claims to try to target directly. And you can see by how volatile this happiness index is that these, centrally planned numbers are not really helping. They're consistently inconsistent, we could say.
Yeah. Okay.
So, so I just wanted to point out here that consumer sentiment is rising a little bit lately, but it's still, lower than the long-term average. And part of the reason happiness, quote unquote, which is a terrible name for this, right? It's like calling currency money. I mean, it's just so confusing and misleading. But part of the reason this is going up is because unemployment is going down and inflation is not rising as much as it usually does. So with those being artificially low, it looks like happiness is high, but we know that those numbers are manipulated. They redefine what does it mean to be employed. And so it makes it look like employment is lower, or you take away one good full-time job to give people two crappy part-time jobs, and it looks like more people are employed because of the total number of jobs. So we know those numbers are manipulated. I wouldn't put a lot of faith in this, but that's really all I got. Anything else that you see in this, Mike?
Well, it just seems like the happiness index seems like voodoo. So you can see it just plunge off a cliff with the COVID and lockdowns. And then it rises again because of no inflation back then yet. Inflation of the currency supply, but no retail inflation. And then plunges, probably due to inflation. And then inflation numbers are down, but people are back to work. So that's probably the reason it's up. I don't know, but it's going through this seesaw that, it's a silly index. Let's move on.
It is a silly index. I agree. Let's move on. So anyways, if anyone wants to check this out for themselves, we have a link to it on our website, GoldSilver.com. Down here, that is over here, the misery index versus the consumer sentiment, a paradox in American economic perception. And of course, there's no paradox as we just described. It's certain numbers are manipulated and they aren't reliable, and it's basically voodoo. So there's really no paradox to solve there. There's a few other articles here worth pointing out. Massive student debt strike amid loan repayment challenges. Gold, a surge towards $2,400, looks imminent.
Wow.
And our headline of the week, gold's rise. LBMA London gold price sets new record as year ends. So that is our headline of the week. LBMA gold price hit $2,069.40 per troy ounce. And Mike, sometimes you and I talk about gold setting record prices in different countries around the world. And sometimes people dismiss that and say like, oh, that economy, has something unique going on. And so people might be tempted to dismiss this. However, let me point out that this is the formal globally recognized price, and it's been that way since 1919. So this is like the global price of gold for over 100 years. It's at a record high. What are your thoughts?
Awesome. Record prices. And, if you also do the rest of the charts, it's daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. This year, we're not, this will be the last trading day of the year. And we should be setting a record here then for yearly. So this is just amazing. And it just says there is a giant bull market coming.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. And it's not just global investors, individuals or other investors that are interested in the price of gold. It's also governments. And that is the theme of the article of the week. U.S. states make bold move to reclassify gold and silver. So earlier this week, we have proposed legislation that would remove barriers to using gold and silver as money by lowering transaction costs. And we have a couple different bills that aim to treat precious metals as legal tender, breaking down the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money. The move is part of a larger effort at the state level to support sound money and challenge the federal government's fiat currency system. So these are bills in Oklahoma and Missouri, slated for the 2024 legislative session. If you check out this article, you can actually read the bills themselves. And there's just a couple things in this article that I wanted to point out. Both of these states are already among the 42 states that do not levy sales taxes on gold and silver bullion.
Mm-hmm.
Exempting the sale of gold and silver bullion from taxes lowers the investment cost of precious metals. It also takes a step toward treating gold and silver as money, which it is, instead of commodities. Awesome. And there's a quote from Ron Paul here. We ought not to tax money, and that's a good idea. It makes no sense to tax money. Paper is not money. It's fraud.
Yep. I love Ron Paul. I've interviewed him a couple of times, and he's just a wonderful man. It is interesting. There's this constant march of states seemingly getting ready for something. When it's legal tender, like the gold and silver eagle, they're treated at face value if you want to pay your taxes with them, because you can. They are legal tender. But buying and selling things with them at the free market price, I'm not sure what states would allow that without taxation. So, and I don't know what the IRS thinks of it. So,
yeah, exactly. Well, there is a note here. Oklahoma took a similar step in 2014. Utah and Arkansas also consider gold and silver legal tender. So I think if that list was much longer, the states would be listed here, but I'm not sure. That would be.
Well, I remember Utah and Arkansas doing it. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. So, the only other thing I would say here is that, the U.S. Constitution states in Article 1, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. That's states, right? And then, of course, we have our federal government, which, prints the paper, which Ron Paul calls fraud.
Well, every day the Congress and the Senate are passing legislation that is unconstitutional. It violates so we have a master set of laws that they just completely ignore, or they spit on it practically on a daily basis. And like Ron Paul says, he's a constitutionalist. If you want to do something that the Constitution doesn't allow, then you have to amend the Constitution. You don't just violate your master set of laws.
Yeah, sounds simple enough to me. I don't know what the problem is for everyone else.
Right.
But
Hi, I just wanted to take a moment and thank you for subscribing and mention that if you'd like to help our channel, please consider my company, GoldSilver.com, the next time you buy precious metals. We're one of the most trusted names in the industry. Our prices are sharp, delivery is fast, and we have an insiders program where you find out exactly what I'm doing with my own investments. Thanks for making GoldSilver.com your dealer, and now back to the video.
anyways, I don't want to get too hung up on that. So yeah, we have state governments doing this. We have investors globally driving up the price of gold, and we have some corporations that are getting into the gold and silver game. This is our tweet of the week. It comes from the TA investor. First Costco, now Walmart. And this is a screenshot that he posted of him searching on Walmart's website for silver coin, and they're selling silver coins as well as gold. Mm-hmm. And if you missed it from a couple weeks ago, in one of our videos, we showed this article from Costco. Costco gold bars were a hot holiday buy while they lasted. This is a snapshot of what they were selling on their website. And Costco sold $100 million worth of gold bars in its most recent quarter, according to the CEO. And sales of the 1 ounce bars are limited to 2 per membership, and they sell out within a few hours. So you've got people at Costco and Walmart just buying gold and silver ravenously. So what do you think of this trend, Mike?
Well, I think it's great, but what they are lacking is a two-way market, and then offering things like insured vault storage all over. We've got insured vault storage in Hong Kong, Singapore, Canada, the US. And then, and so we've got fully insured storage. We can put it in your IRA. Costco and Walmart can't do that. And we don't limit you to just 2 ounces of gold. You can buy as much as you want. And then with our InstaVault program, you've got gold and silver that are in a vault, fully insured, that are instantly tradable back and forth. You can go in them and out of them at a very, very low cost, a lower cost than buying it at Walmart or Costco. So the advantages, what this is showing though, is that we are entering the third and final phase of the precious metals bull market. This is where the biggest moves are made and the biggest gains in wealth are made right here. And this is the proof that we are entering that, because it's now getting into the public's consciousness.
Yes, exactly. And that is the reason I included it in this video. Is once the average Joe starts paying attention to something that they've been ignoring for decades, mm-hmm. that's how you know you're entering that vertical part of the bull market. So
right. And then all you have to do is add a crisis sometime in 2024 with these bubbles that the Fed has blown, and they're bigger than the bubbles in 2008. Everything is in hyper bubbles now. And so you add a crisis to that. And as everything else melts down, these are going to do, gold and silver are going to do a historic melt up. It's going to be something that will take everybody's breath away.
Absolutely. And speaking of crisis, I want to get back to the number of the week, which I said was 7 million. I said there are 7 million people doing something. And that came from this article here. Inflation is nearly back to normal, but high prices have changed Americans' lives. And the quote I wanted to hone in on from this article is right here. Minnesota food shelves are on track to log a record 7 million visitors this year. Last year, it was 5.5 million. So yes, those are probably repeat visitors in many cases, but wow, 7 million people having trouble getting food. This is a crisis. It's already happening. And there's one person who said, I've been barely getting by the skin of my teeth for the last 3 years since COVID. She's a disabled veteran on a fixed income. With the cost of food, the cost of everything going up, I'm getting to the point where I have zero money left over at the end of the month. She's also racked up credit card debt to cover unexpected expenses. She says, this month I could not pay any of my bills. And my debts and my bills are mounting. And now I've got late payments hitting me and all these credit card fees. And now my minimum payments have gone up. and I'm hurting bad. And this is the average American.
Right. And that 7 million just applies to Minnesota alone. So what would this be nationwide? If you've got to go to these food banks and stand in line for free food, that's 7 million people trying to get free food. That is really something. I do believe that, and this is all the Federal Reserve's fault. And it is if you go to ggsr21.com and look at episode of chapter 4 of the Great Gold and Silver Rush of the 21st Century, which is online and free, the final one or two sections of that chapter show the wealth disparity that the Federal Reserve's actions have caused since the global financial crisis of 2008, and shifting from Keynesian economics to Bernankenomics. It has just devastated everybody. So shifting from Keynesian economics to implementing all of Ben Bernanke's strategies that were laid out in his speech in 2004, I believe it was 2002 speech on deflation, making sure it doesn't happen here.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of, that's our meme of the week: inflation taking away the American consumer, yelling help. Oh, don't worry, it's transitory, says the
Fed. Okay, that's hilarious. Thank you, Alan. And I want to thank everybody for watching. Smash that like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Alan.